Hey, podcast listeners. Today I am excited to share some of my thoughts and reflections on a couple of different topics. The first is about black holes or false suns, and the second is going to be about scapegoats. So here we go. Black holes. Black holes are people who want us to believe that they are the sun, and they want us to orbit around them like a satellite. They want to believe they are bestowing their light and warmth upon us, and they want us to reflect their beauty back to them and be grateful. However, the truth is, these people are not the sun, but false suns called black holes. And the truth is, their light and warmth isn't real. They just give really kind of the illusion of warmth and light, but it's really darkness and coldness. You can't orbit around a black hole because the gravitational force will suck you in. The difference between a true sun and a black hole is generosity. A false sun may shine brightly, but it gives inconsistently, and it cannot be trusted. It gives with an agenda and only gives enough to keep you in its orbit. Its light and warmth might feel life-giving, and it will hook you in if it's the only light in your universe. Because if the alternative is just cold, empty space, even a false sun is much preferred. A true sun is consistently good and generous and gives light with no agenda and is rare, so rare. Many of us will not tolerate the vast emptiness of travel required to find a true sun and will instead settle for something much less. However, what if I told you you can become a sun, a radiant orb of generous light and love for yourself? What if you learned there is a budding star inside you waiting to shine for all the world to see and feel? And what she needs from you is to be seen and recognized. What if you integrated with her, your long lost self, by attuning to her, and she was the source of your warmth? Would you have ever guessed how powerful you would be together? Not just to generate heat internally, but to bring more light to the entire cosmos. She needs you, and you need her. Together, you will create a strong nuclear force that is unstoppable. Okay, so that's what I have to say about black holes. And now another image for you, which is the image of a scapegoat. As a Jewish woman who is also a psychotherapist, I appreciate the concept of scapegoat. Believe it or not, the term scapegoat first appears from the Hebrew scriptures in a ritual referred to as Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. If you're not familiar with it, it's where two blameless goats were chosen each year, one to sacrifice on behalf of the community, and the other to be the scapegoat, which is set free, but upon whom is placed the collective sin of the Hebrew people. This goat would be released outside the boundary of the community to wander in the wilderness, burdened with guilt that wasn't his. He was technically free, but spiritually bound. Scapegoat is a term we use today in modern society, especially in psychological and 12-step communities, as people identify themselves as the family scapegoat. As a therapist, I find most people who seek out therapy fall into this category, at least to some degree. For example, people often seek out therapy because they believe and are willing to admit something is wrong with them. Not everyone has the ego strength to do this. And ironically, people who have the most wrong with them are the least likely to admit it and therefore pursue therapy. Not the scapegoat. Scapegoats have no problem admitting that there's something wrong with them. In fact, most scapegoats believe everything is wrong with them and only with them. You see, they have bought into the family lie that they're the defective ones. It's a role that serves the entire family, as the scapegoat serves as the receptacle for the self contempt of other family members who refuse to acknowledge their own feelings. True human scapegoats, just like their namesakes in the Hebrew ritual, are technically free but spiritually bound with guilt that does not belong to them. Because they were conditioned as children that they are bad, they don't trust themselves and they live in a state of exile from their core self. This makes them easy prey for other abusive people who manipulate, deceive, and objectify them. Scapegoats were trained to be nice, but have yet to realize that nice serves the purposes of those around them, and they don't distinguish from being good and being nice. Scapegoats have a lot in common with another metaphorical figure called the voodoo doll. The voodoo doll also serves as a receptacle for a person's self-contempt, which they are able to offload onto an object to deflect from feeling or acknowledging it for themselves. Every time a person's self-hatred is triggered, instead of having to feel it, they can just stick another pin in the voodoo doll, making the doll the problem. I recently had a client tell me she is playing the role of voodoo doll for a close family member. It's a thing. While we're on the subject of ancient Hebrew history, another behavior documented in scripture is what famously took place in the Valley of Hinnom, later referred to by Jesus in the New Testament as Gehenna. In this valley, Israelites participated in the rituals of the nations surrounding them by engaging in child sacrifice. We don't talk much about child sacrifice, but maybe we should, because believe it or not, it still happens, and not just in satanic cults. If we can view child sacrifice more metaphorically, we start seeing how it happens all the time, such as when parents make their children the scapegoat for their own self-contempt. We also see it happen when parents withhold nurture from their children who are in desperate need of it. We see it when parents choose to bring a child into the world, yet refuse to actively love that child, which requires the parent to make a lot of sacrifices. When the parent chooses not to undergo those necessary sacrifices, the child does instead. As a therapist, I have seen how common this is and what happens to these children. It is hard to witness day after day. I never thought my career would open my eyes to this level of ugliness of humanity. Suffice it to say, I no longer believe people are generally good or give people the benefit of the doubt. I know too much. But I would be lying if I didn't also reflect how I myself have participated in that ugliness when I withheld love from my daughter who was in desperate need of it. I too engaged in a modicum of child sacrifice when I refused to listen to her and validate her anger at me and do the necessary work to change. I too chose my own comfort over hers, which brought her unnecessary harm. I'd be lying if I pretended child sacrifice is easy to avoid or that I was a poster child of good parenting. The news is our children have a natural bent toward forgiving us, their parents, if we can make the sacrifice of humility to apologize. Our apology can't be limited only to a simple, I'm sorry, but that is a great start. Then we name how we hurt them, such as, I refuse to take you seriously, and that was wrong, and I see what that did to you, and it breaks my heart. This is followed by a change in behavior, which again will not be perfect, but is another good and necessary start. Most importantly, we become a listener, not a talker, with our children. We can learn as we go because our kids will tell us what they need from us and we will listen. We're going to hear some hard things, but that's okay because we know that our sacrifice means it's no longer theirs. That's how we unburden them because they're worth it and because it's our job. It's hard work parenting well, even when our children are adults, but the reward is sweet. There's nothing like actually earning the respect of a child versus demanding it. There's nothing like knowing their love for you is not compulsive, but given freely. And there's nothing like learning how to truly give and receive genuine love. So that's what I have to share today. Guys, please share this with a friend or two. Please give me a 5-star review if you want to help others know about this podcast. And please subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for listening.